Both of us have been sports fans our whole lives, but living in Denmark has changed how we watch sports in ways that we didn't expect. We also have learned that each country is absolutely sports obsessed, but in their own way. So we've had to adapt to that as well.
So one key difference between sports in Denmark and sports in the US is basically how we watch sports. When we lived in the US, it was very common for us to have some kind of game on in the background while we were going about our daily lives. This could be chores or even just kind of relaxing and talking and half paying attention to the game that's on the TV. Since we're 6 hours ahead of the US East Coast, we don't really have American cable, of course, and it's a bit harder for us to watch those sports that we like. Especially the ones that come on at night, like most baseball games, definitely basketball, ice hockey, we really don't get to watch now that we're living in Denmark because, well, we're sleeping. So that's a big difference. And things like football on American football on Sundays, normally if it's a 1 p.m. game in the US, then we get to catch it. If it starts at 7 p.m. in Denmark, we can kind of stay up till the end of that game, and maybe we're a little bit more tired on a Monday, but it's really special when we do actually get to watch our teams play on a Sunday because of the time that they're playing.
Yeah, one of the funny things is I feel like I follow sports like baseball the same way that my grandfather did, which is by reading articles the next day of the game that happened. Though I get to have YouTube clips, and I don't think he had that back in the 1940s. So speaking of trying to watch games from overseas, one of the easiest ways for us to do that is with a VPN. And we use NordVPN, who sponsors this video. VPN lets you change your geographic location so that you can be able to pretend to be in the place where the game is being held. I used it last month actually to watch the NCAA basketball tournament so I could watch and stream from the US even though I was sitting here in Denmark. So NordVPN has sponsored this video, and in fact there's a link in the description that you can find it on the screen right now.
Using our link in the description, you can get a huge discount on a 2-year plan of NordVPN, and it's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee.
NordVPN is fantastic. They've got 5,400 servers in 60 countries, so whether you're looking to go watch an Indian cricket match, a Japanese basketball game, or maybe an ice hockey game from Canada, you'll be able to find what you need to find in the server that you need. So again, there's a link below for NordVPN. It's nordvpn.com/robe, so it's unique just for you guys as our loyal Robe Trading viewers, and I hope you try it out. It's been a real help for us.
So another way that sports are a bit different for us in Denmark compared to how they were for us in the US is that we feel a bit more detached from our teams and the sports that we like to follow. In the US, it's very common to talk about the game last night when you're at work with your colleagues, and we don't really get to do that here in Denmark as much because people aren't waking up in the middle of the night to watch basketball or baseball, and we kind of lose that. Also, people don't really follow those sports as much in Denmark at all, so we miss out on those conversations. We don't really get to follow our teams as closely as we used to. Because we're not watching them day to day, we kind of lose track of where they are in the season and their schedules, and it can be a bit frustrating. I know for me, sometimes I'm a bit all or nothing, so if I'm not able to really closely follow the baseball season or my American football team, it can be a bit frustrating, and then I sometimes kind of just give up and lose track. And there's even times where maybe I miss a lot of what's going on with the draft or, college football or college basketball. It's a lot to keep track of when you don't get to see all of these games that you're used to seeing in the U.S. So there's times where sometimes I'll turn on a game or go out to watch a game and I don't even know some of these players on my favorite team that I've been following since I was this tall. And it can be kind of a little sad sometimes.
I definitely felt that during the NCAA basketball tournament at my university, had a really good run. Texting with my friends from college, I felt like I didn't have the same connection. Like they were saying things about players and I really couldn't chime in because I honestly hadn't seen them play. I'd seen highlights and that was about it. Yeah. But what's funny with that is it does mean that one sport has really taken primacy for us to make us have that little feeling of home, and that is American football. Now, part of it helps that both of our teams have actually been really good in the 5 years that we've been in Denmark. But I'd say of all the things that make us still feel a little bit of that touch of home, it's American football that does it the most for us.
Yeah, I know my team even won a Super Bowl during the time that we were here, which was tough to not be in Philadelphia for the Eagles' run. I actually did go back to the U.S. to watch the game in Philadelphia with my friends because I just knew it wouldn't be the same to wake up and watch it at 2 in the morning here in Denmark. It just wouldn't have had the same effect. So I was glad that I got to be there. But that is kind of one thing, going out and watching American football here in Copenhagen does kind of make us feel a bit more at home. And a lot of times we do take the opportunity to go and meet up with other Americans. There's usually a lot of Americans that are either traveling, some that live here, and then some Danes that are also American football fans that we've gotten to meet at the one sports bar in Copenhagen that actually shows American football on Sundays.
Yeah, it's become a really nice little ritual for us in the fall to be ready to watch the games at 7 o'clock and get that taste of home.
So another big difference between sports in Denmark and sports in the US is going out and watching sports. It's just not as easy to do in Denmark. And I think it's a bit more common for Danes, and correct me if we're wrong, to gather people together in their homes to watch some of the major sporting events. Now, the big things like the Euros, for example, there were watch parties in places around town. Part of that is because some of the games were held here in Denmark. But in the US, you go out for games all the time. We have a lot more sports bars, and even restaurants, like casual restaurants, will have TVs around the restaurant, at the very least around the bar area of the restaurant. So there kind of is always a game on in the background, wherever you are. All bars will have a TV. Usually there will be whatever local team is playing will be shown on that TV, and you can go out to watch a game quite commonly. It's not quite the same thing here in Denmark, where bars don't really have TVs and restaurants certainly don't. So it's a bit different how we watch sports from here in Denmark.
And even when people go out, it's a little bit different as well. I mean, in the US, if you go out to watch a sports game, because there's TVs everywhere, it's more of an organic experience. You may go out, and if your team is from a different city, you can go to whatever bar and ask them to put your team on that TV. No big deal. They're part of the ambiance. You chit-chat with other people, not a whole thing. In Denmark, much like many things, it's a little bit more structured and organized. So, for example, if you're a Liverpool fan, then you'll go watch your game at the Liverpool bar that watches the games there at the Liverpool game time around Liverpool fans, all in your Liverpool jerseys and shirts, and you'll sing You'll Never Walk Alone together, and it's part of that experience. It's a little more structured in that way. Now, there certainly are bars that do that, say, in the U.S. I know for my team, I never lived in that hometown, so there'd be specific bars that showed that, but it's a little bit more structured here in that way as you have supporters for different teams. And speaking of watching games out, one of the things I've had to learn as well, or actually more specifically my brother has had to learn, is that when we do watch games at bars, it's usually streaming, or we watch it at home, it's usually streaming. So there's a lag of about 30 or 45 seconds from the live broadcast back in the States. So there's been multiple times when I've seen a text from my brother for something exciting that happened, good or bad, and I'm still sitting there watching the replay from the previous play, and I know that something big is coming up and I have to pay attention. So little thing that Dan has had to watch out for me when we text during games.
So another big difference of watching sports in the US versus watching sports in Denmark is living here has given us the opportunity to get into some new sports that we just didn't follow or aren't very popular back in the US. And one thing is football, right? Or as Americans would say, soccer. But it's been really cool for us to get to watch the Danish national team, as the American team hasn't really had much to offer in the last few years that we've been living here. And y'all know that we do love Kasper Schmeichel, and it's been really fun to watch the Euros last summer and really get into the vibe and cheer on Denmark, just like all of you native Danes got to do. And we really like being there, right there with you, and we love getting into some of these additional sports.
Schmeichel, yeah, it was a lot of fun being a part of that last summer. That was a really neat experience. The other sport that I've really gotten into and enjoy is handball. I mean, this is a sport that we played as kids in gym class growing up, with not nearly the intensity that you have here. Have gotten to enjoy watching it, gone to a couple of games with some friends as well, and actually had my family understanding what the rules of handball were early in the morning during the Olympics this past year, watching the Danes take on the French, or I think it was, in the gold medal game. I know Denmark didn't win that one. I'm sorry.
And Superliga.
Oh, yes. And we've gotten to see some of the matches here in the Super League. We happened to step into a cafe as a whole bunch of FC Co supporters were coming in together, and got to join in a hearty FC Skål cheers to the team as well.
So another big difference between sports in Denmark and sports in the US is, of course, playing sports. In fact, the way that we met was actually in a rec sports league. And we knew that when we came to Denmark, we'd want to make some new friends, and that one of the best ways to make friends is by joining an organization. So we joined a rec sports league in Denmark, and we thought it would be roughly the same as the league that we played in Philadelphia, and it was not. I think the main way is that people take it really seriously. And in the US, there's kind of like a more social aspect of recreational sports. They're much more recreational. And yes, there are people that take it seriously. But I think the purpose of a sports league in the US is really to connect with people, especially when you're in your late 20s, 30s, 40s. You're not taking it as seriously as they do here. And I really wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah, we should have realized it when they said, "Oh, are you coming to training on Monday?" That training isn't just a Danish word, it's legitimately training. Now, it was a lot of fun all the same, and we got to meet a lot of awesome friends, and there are social events that go on with it. But in many ways in the US, if you're an adult playing in kind of a rec sports league, the idea is that the sport itself is basically just a pregame for everyone going to the bar afterwards, whereas here it is the main event that you sign up for, and maybe you'll have a couple parties during the year, maybe one night a month you'll go out to the bar afterwards to have some beers, but again, the purpose is the sport. And I guess that makes sense. It's just not what we're used to for adult rec sports in the US.
Danes are very literal.
They are.
And that's maybe the difference that we weren't prepared for. So those are the things that kind of confuse us about playing sports in Denmark.
But for watching sports, don't forget to take advantage of NordVPN's huge discount on a 2-year plan. You can try it risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee using the link in the description.
And if you want to keep watching globetrotting videos, you can watch this one here on 9 things that are very American that we still do, even though we live in Denmark. And this video in front of Mike on 5 ways that our views of America have changed since we've been living in Denmark. Thanks for watching, guys.
Hi.